It's 5 o'clock in Pirate Country, and it's time to get pumped up with the P-Man. Hit the door and hit the road. 94.3 The Game is going to get you home, and the P-Man's not holding back.
Yes! Yes! Pirates win! Pirates win!
Bring on the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
Holy mackerel! Oh, my goodness!
The flagship station of the ECU Pirates.
It's False Fall. Don't fall for it. Don't fall. It's going to be hot as hell next week. You know it will be. Welcome in, everybody. Patrick Johnson here on this Thursday, final show of the week for the Great P-Man. We'll be live tomorrow at 5 o'clock, but Philip the Ref Pilkington, who joins us here for the fun and excitement, will be hosting tomorrow. Is our guy Dom going to be in tomorrow? Is he okay? I understand he was involved in a little something this week, but Dom, we hope all's well. We hope you're okay, buddy. Will Dom be in producing tomorrow?
Yeah, Dom's still going to be in producing. I'm going to tag in for him on Talk of the Town. So 2 Talk of the Towns for me this week. Yeah.
You got a full day tomorrow, Pil.
I do.
You got a full
5:30 a.m. and probably get out of here about 9:30 tomorrow night by the time high school football's over.
You're not doing it the right way. You're not doing it the Buscemi way and not getting there at 3, so you could sit around and play on your phone. All right. Hey-oh, hey-oh. That was a pretty good one, Pilk. You got to give me a little bit of credit on that.
That was good. The only problem is Buscemi's not here to defend himself. You know, it's 5-0 whatever, 5:02 almost, 5:01, and he's probably already asleep because he goes to bed earlier than you do.
He doesn't stay up, though. He stays up all night, rather, I should say, the night before these remotes.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, so he's pacing somewhere. He's in an hourly hotel pacing, is my guess. All right, so we have Joe Giglio scheduled to be with us here today. Looking forward to talking to him with college football starting. No games tonight on the week 0 schedule. They all start this weekend. A couple of things we'll get to there. Some other things we've talked about this week. Pilk, I'm going to play this here. I hope I can attempt to do it. It is totally self-serving, but I wanted to give a shout to my good friend Miles Minges of Minges Bottling Group, who sent me a video of a recording on a cassette tape of a game I did of his back, has to be 25 or so years ago now, probably more than that, probably 27, 28 years ago. But boy, I sound like Thurston Howe the third here when I'm doing this play-by-play back in the day. Totally self-serving, but it was Miles' birthday this week, so I wanted to wish him a happy birthday and also roll this out there as well. So here it is, Pilk. I'm going to try to get this to go from my end. How long is this? I'll make sure it's about 30-some seconds, so I'll probably not stop. I'll probably not play the whole thing, but here we go.
Out front is Watson. A little shake and bake by Hesmer as he takes in the lane, tried to go glass and misses, gets his own offensive rebound over Minges and then scores. Hesmer wanted a foul on the way up. He's Greenfield's leading scorer now with 7:05 left on the clock. Wooten behind the arc. Takes a 3 and it misses it short. Minges tips it in. Off the miss. What a tip by Miles Minges as he extended his arm and tipped it up and in. That finishes him with 8 for the first half. 36-15, the Patriots dominated. We'll be back after this 2.5-minute timeout on AM 1230 WLNR.
See, what did you think of that? I sounded like Howard Cosell there is what I sounded like.
Oh, no, you're better than Howard Cosell. Don't demise yourself like that.
I was talking like this during the game.
I know, but I know that he's the most loved broadcaster of all time, but he's also the most hated broadcaster of all time, and I'm definitely on the hate train with Cosell.
I'm hated. If you go to the message boards, I'm hated. All right, so, of course, if you go to the message boards, you probably aren't that literate.
I was about to say, if you go to the message boards, we're all hated. We all get flack on the message boards.
Right,
so.
That's true there. Oh, there's Buscemi behind you. He must not have left yet for his big bite on the box
no, he hasn't.
Remote there. He explains those sunglasses he has on. Perhaps he's a little confused as to where he is. I'm confused as to where he is most of the time. So a guy named Pete Chopin over the summer sent me, and I haven't cracked these open yet. But he sent me some cassettes. I think I told you this. Back in like the late spring, early summer, he sent me some cassette tapes of when I did some minor league baseball back. That was 26 years ago. And if I sound as horrible doing that baseball as I sounded in that cut there, then I don't want to listen to him.
I
But that's
like the
kinda
old school
cool,
radio
nostalgic.
sound. You know, there's something traditional about listening to a sporting event, and it's got that old school radio sound. I like it more than the fact that right now it sounds like the guy sitting next to you. I like the old
Well,
going on.
yeah,
I
I
don't
get
know.
it. And it's also, and again, that's a video recording of a cassette being played, which I thought was pretty cool. Do we have time? Do we want to play the Caliendo thing where they were talking about the John Madden movie? We talked about that earlier in the week. Do we have time to play that?
Do you have it on
Possibly
your
here, Phil?
thing?
I've got it here.
Oh,
Give me
yeah.
a second to get it queued up, but yeah, let me. I've got it here. This is Caliendo. So the story this week was Frank Caliendo, or they're doing a John Madden biopic. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that the story? And is it Rich? It's who do they have
Nicolas
playing
Cage
it?
is going to play him.
Nicolas Cage. Okay, so so he is playing him. Caliendo, who I think's brilliant. Here's a bunch of guys I think could have been cast as John Madden in the movie. This is about a minute. I got it for you. Hit it.
The list of actors I believe would be truly fantastic playing the part of John Madden in a film. Hey, did you touch my turducken? I know you touched my drumstick because there's a bite out of it. So, how do you cook it? Can we smoke it? Jimmy, can you pull up that last play on and draw some circles? Guy over here, you got a guy over there. So, man, I'm Bat Madden. That man's playing cover 2. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. Say his name. You know who he is. Brett Favre. Brett Favre. Brett Favre has a very particular set of skills. Skills that make him a nightmare for defenses like yours. Oh my God, Brett Favre is so good. That's just Brett Favre being Brett Favre. Hey folks, John Madden here from Mint Mobile. Boom. 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 Ha ha ha. Boom. That guy looks like he got hit by a freight train. You shall not pass. 5 years ago, when I first started using the Telestrator, I had no idea it was going to take off the way it did. Man, it's not how big you are, it's how big you play. Boom.
I mean, it's just a myriad of celebrities there, and Caliendo. I mean, even does a little Nicolas Cage in there though.
It's great.
That was good.
And I love Caliendo. What does he do now? I haven't heard anything from him in a long time.
Well, so Caliendo, was the impressionist stand-up. Madden was his claim to fame,
But
and
Madden
he started
hated him.
and he started on Mad TV. Back, I mean, this is because a lot of people probably don't even know what Mad TV is. That's probably well before your time, Pilk. And so he was on there, and then he matriculated through stand-up, and he had the Frank Caliendo Show, which is about 15, 20 years ago, where he would do skits with these different impressions he would do. And then out of that, he also did the pre-show with Fox.
That's when I first,
he was
was
yeah,
Fox.
he was on
Yeah.
Fox's pre-show, and then ESPN signed him
I remember
because
that.
Disney has so much money. And what ESPN had him do, as opposed to doing the different, Fox turned him loose
Yeah.
and let him do impressions, and he did the studio crew for Fox, but he also did Madden, he did coaches, he did celebrities. Well, ESPN, I guess, this was my perception of it, had him come on Sunday, the pregame show, whatever.
Sunday
it
NFL
is.
Countdown,
Sunday Countdown, NFL Countdown. But they had him do impressions of like their reporters, and like it was never, like it didn't connect in my mind because they wouldn't let him do the celebrities. The only one that that I thought he was really great at on that was Chucky. Oh God, what's his name? Pilk coached the Bucks and the Raiders. Briefly.
John Gruden.
Gruden. He did Gruden when Gruden was on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
That's around the time that. So I mean that was kind of a funny impression that Caliendo did.
He did a
But,
good
I mean, like-
Gruden, and he did a great Mel Kiper Jr. All the
Right.
draft guys, Jaworski, Mel Kiper, he was
Right.
good with those guys. But yeah, like you said, they were doing like the rando sideline
so
reporters that nobody
niche.
knew anyways. Yeah.
Right, but it was even that stuff with Kuiper, and it was still niche.
Yeah.
And so it just I think it would. But look, Frank probably will be able to send his kids to college and has a second or third house as a result of that Disney contract. So God
Yeah.
bless him. More power to him.
Did you ever watch the 30-minute thing they put together one time? They aired it. It's probably been 10, 12 years ago, where it was the best of Frank Caliendo. It was like a 30-minute special. If you go back, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube or something and watch it.
Right.
But it's hilarious. So it really was the best of the guys he did. A lot of it is kind of stuff that he did on Fox. And
good.
I mean, he does Belichick. He does some of the players.
Belichick
Oh
is
my
great.
goodness.
Yeah.
He does a lot of John Madden on it. Gruden was the best when he does the quarterback camp, and he's got this 12-year-old kid in there, and he's like, "So you're kind of small," and the kid's like, "Well, I'll grow." He goes, "What the heck? You think you're going to grow? What are you, 10 years old?" Oh man, that was so funny.
Yeah. Let's see here. A couple of other things I wanted to mention and do. No, Caliendo's great, and you couldn't have him play Madden in the movie because it would just be the impression of Madden the whole. Although it would probably be better than Nick Cage playing him, to be honest with you. There was one other thing I thought I wanted to audio-wise, but I don't think there is anything, so nothing there. Okay. You sent this. This was from Kyle Umlang. Mr. Data, co-host of the Statistics Pod and Lone Star Show podcasts, data analyst, graphic designer, MS Data Science, college football stat expert, best-selling author. Aren't they all? He's got 59,000 followers, though, including the Mindy Project on X, which is formerly Twitter, as we're often told. So this graphic he put out, I wish we had thrown this up here on the thing, Pilk, but he says how it should be, I guess, with the playoff. First place teams out of the Big 12, ACC, Big 10, and SEC get a bye. It's probably going to happen, right? And then you have the fourth. You have Big 10 teams going down to the fourth place Big 10 team. Third place Big 12 team. So his playoff doesn't allow for anybody from the G5 to get in. Is that what I'm seeing here?
It doesn't allow anyone from the G5, but it also, each little bracket, I guess, has, 3 of the 4 conferences in it, each bracket of 3 teams, because you got 12.
Right.
Yeah. And he goes where the ACC only gets 2 teams regardless. The SEC and Big 12 were going to get 3 teams, and then the Big 10 got 4. So no matter how crappy the Big 10 was, which, I mean, I get SC and LA are going there, but I mean, you're really thinking the Big 10? I mean, if I'm giving 4 to anybody, it's the SEC. But yeah, it was already determined to, like, hey, for example, the 4th place Big 10 team will play the 2nd place SEC team. So it totally gets rid of seeding. It almost doesn't how a team,
so in other words, he's saying it should be. See, that won't work because the schedules aren't balanced.
They're not.
So the third place team in the Big 12 could have played a weak as water schedule. Now you might argue, well, what about the G5 champion? Well, odds are that team is going to be close to undefeated, if not undefeated.
Yeah.
Will have won a championship, and in order to get considered ranked high enough to get in, will have had to have probably beaten a pretty good team along the way, or
unless
two,
you're Liberty and you play the easiest schedule in the country and you go undefeated.
Right. Well, that's true.
And you get throttled by 40.
So I don't. The bozo claims he's a best-selling author, and I'm a best-selling adult film star. I mean, come on, you could claim any such nonsense in this day and age, especially on social media. But to me, it's going to head there anyway, unless, and this is the thing that's frustrating to me. You can't tell me that there's not an antitrust lawsuit that could be had by members of the G5, hell, even members of the ACC if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of universities, particularly at that so-called G5 level, that could sue the NCAA or sue the college football playoff organizers, or even sue these bigger conferences because of the antitrust nonsense that's going on. they won't do it because they're so scared, one, they have to spend money. Scared money don't make money. And two, that they would be cut out from making future earnings because they'd be blackballed by the four alleged power leagues. They want to be able to still get on the schedule and get a payday. It would take some guts. And see, I don't think the Americans' interests lie in this because the American still wants to get a more official seat at the table. That's what they're angling for. So you're not going to get – you can't agree – even with the Big Ten and SEC, their goal, respectively, Pilk, is the same. But they're not going to agree on how they should get there, even though they're pretty closely aligned.
Yeah.
They're not in cahoots because their leadership can't agree with how to get there. Although, again, it's pretty closely aligned.
They want there to be 3 divisions of Division I football. They want Tier A, then they want that to split off from the current FBS and leave the Vanderbilts and the Dukes behind, and the East Carolinas behind,
right.
And then, then there'd be FCS. Or actually, they couldn't care less what happens between the remaining FBS and Harvard. Right, they don't care. But
if they could play them, as long as they can get them to schedule a game, one a year, and that gives them an extra a 7th or 8th home game, then they're fine. They're fine with that. The thing, though, that when you say the Dukes, the Vanderbilts, the Who's, the teams in the American, but see what. This is where, again, the interests don't align. Ole Miss and Mississippi State can't do this.
No, but they sure as heck are going to want to be a part of it.
Well, everybody wants to be a part. That's my point. Everybody wants to be a part of it. But, I mean, the Big Ten, the vast majority are state institutions. Now, the UCLA-USC thing's a little unique. Michigan State is a secondary university. Ohio State is the University of Ohio, in the sense that it is the big state university. So they're all the big state universities in each state. Now, granted, Maryland and Rutgers, in some respects, are probably not equal to that of Michigan, Illinois, that kind of thing. But you're talking the big state institutions in the Big Ten. The majority of them, if they choose to, will be able to afford this because – they're the big state institutions. They have the big alumni base. They have the big donor base. They also are getting the TV money. The Brinks truck is backed up.
Yeah.
The SEC, the majority of the SEC can do this, but there are more lower mid-tier teams in the SEC that may not be realistically willing to do this. And I say willing, I mean affording in that instance.
Yeah,
they wouldn't
a good
be able
point
to afford
because
to do this.
There are more big-time state schools in the South, so it's more revenue distributed than it is in the North. The North is plagued with private schools, and the schools that aren't private are the Big Ten. The South is plagued with public schools and that state funding and those big alumni. Take the state of Florida, for example. The big alumni in Florida is split amongst really like 5 schools, if you include UCF and USF, because even though they may not have the athletic prestige, they still, South Florida is like
UCF has the biggest enrollment in the country.
Yeah, I think it's them, and then Texas is number 2. Yeah. So they're split. So they're essentially taking stuff away from Florida, Miami and Florida State or ACC, but from them. So
and Florida State.
Yeah, and then to your point about Ole Miss and Mississippi State, that's kind of split. Arkansas would be kind of one example where they are the one state school, but and LSU, I guess too, but. Alabama and Auburn, they obviously have the money to do it, but they're splitting. So.
Yeah. Well, and those are 2 different – that's the interesting thing about the state of Alabama, where NC State and North Carolina are part of the same UNC system.
Yeah.
Alabama and Auburn there's an Auburn system and there's an state of Alabama system.
Yeah, that's true.
Totally different thing.
It's so
– it's
different.
Again, none of the interests – at the individual institutions are aligned. If they are, it's tenuous at best. The conference's interests are not aligned. It's tenuous at best, but they're aligned enough because of all the money that they could get to. But I mean, the Big Ten and SEC are never going to be in cahoots per se.
They're
They
not.
may agree to an alliance of convenience for this top tier, as you say, but
Yeah.
that'll be the TV networks driving it.
The only thing they can agree on is Alabama agrees they're better than everybody else, but they agree Ohio State is also better than everybody else, and Ohio State thinks the same thing about them in Alabama. That's kind of what it comes down to.
But you've also got Texas in this now.
Yeah.
And they're in the SEC.
And they think they're going to be back to what they were in prime Longhorn
and they
football.
might. I mean, look what's happened with A&M from the standpoint of the coffers.
Yeah.
And Texas's coffers are still bigger than A&M's coffers. But think about this, Pilk. You've got mid-level teams in the Big 12 that can't do this.
No one left in the Big 12 can do this. All the Big 12 could. Maybe Kansas, but
not with football. They're not willing to do that.
Yeah, because everybody in Colorado, no. Arizona, no.
But they're state institutions, so they have a better chance to attempt it.
True.
Than TCU does.
Yeah.
On paper.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The ACC, I think we'll talk to Giglio about this. Even deeper, the ACC, they've got institutions that, again, there's going to be some that aren't willing to do this. Boston College, Wake Forest might tell you they're willing to do this, but they're not really willing to do this, and they can't do it. There's other institutions in the ACC that can't do it and can't compete at that level where they're giving 25% of their revenues paid out to athletes in addition to NIL. They just can't do it. And they may want to do it, but they can't do it. And I'm talking to you, NC State, very loudly. No, seriously.
No, you're right. You're right. Hey, Giglio's a state grad.
Like it or not, they're the number 2 institution in the state.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
They can't do it. UNC, in my opinion, and it's more of a willingness thing. I wonder how willing they are to do it.
They've got a couple alumni that if those alumni jump in, it can be done.
Well, sure.
But they got to have backing from Jordan.
But again, that comes to what are the interests? They're not interested in football. They're interested in basketball. All right, it is the Patrick Johnson Show. Let us take a timeout, and when we come back, we're going to have Joe Giglio on with us, and we'll talk all about the world of college athletics and the season about to start up with Week 0. It is the PJ Show. Pilk is in. The great P-Man with you here on 94.3 The Game and the IBX Media app.
Have you noticed he's in his own little happy hour? We're back to the Patrick Johnson Show on 94.3 The Game.
This is the Happy Hour program.
Here's the P-Man.
Happy to have Joe Giglio with us as promised. Giglio, part of the OG podcast, wherever you download or consume your favorite podcast. And as when we talked to Dimitri Ravanos last week, Joe Ovius and Joe Giglio will be doing the OG podcast Saturday at the Podcast Fest that is taking place at the Rialto in the 5 Points area of Raleigh. And my guy Hayes Permar hosting that. So Joe Giglio joins us now. And Giglio is doing some home repair in the restroom, it looks like, of his home, the bathroom of his home. And this is let's for the video audience, and we'll paint the picture for the radio audience. Giglio is standing. I don't know where he's standing at, but we're not getting Giglio sitting in his restroom. So that's good, in his bathroom. So that's good. That's a positive. Joe, how are you, buddy?
I'm awesome. So this is when I work from home. This is where I do my interviews because the dogs can't bother me here. We got 2 different doors and layers of doors. So in case someone comes and rings that doorbell, all chaos kind of breaks loose. So this is the safest spot for me to be.
I like that he's standing, but he's clearly standing outside the shower, too, and not inside the shower. We can see it in the background. That is important.
I'm fully clothed.
You're fully clothed. And there's nowhere to put, like, a background where it would not be in the way of you and your wife there when you're trying to get ready. And let's face it, your wife's not going to let you commandeer the bathroom to the extent that you get to decorate it for your video and radio hits. So
I know.
it just is what it is. It is what
Yeah,
it is. Is
it
that
works,
kind of how
man.
you look?
Hey,
Yeah, it
the,
does work.
the wireless works good up here. I have like a little stand here, so I can stand. Me with my neck and my back. So
Yeah, I
I think
got
it's
you.
good. I think it's good.
Okay, no, it's fine. I'm glad. Look, we're. I want you for your mind, not for your surrounding there, Giglio. You know this. The great Joe Giglio joining us here on the Patrick Johnson Show. All right, we've got week 0, and I want to talk a lot about football with you. But I read something earlier today from Brian Murphy, who's at WRAL and was with the NNO for a while, and I love Brian, great guy. And he did an article, I thought kind of a glowing article, on the ACC network, which celebrates its 5th anniversary today. And, I'm fascinated by what's going on in the ACC for a lot of reasons. And I look at 5 years of the ACC network, Joe. Has that worked out? I know what the company line is because Brian, and again, I'm not knocking him, he had all the company lines in the piece he did. So I get that. Do you think, from your perspective, that it's a success, or it's been something that has stopped short or come up short in a way? The ACC network, I'm speaking.
Yeah, I think you have to think of the premise of the ACC network itself, right? Was you had the Big Ten beat the SEC to the punch there, made a bunch of money. Then the SEC went to ESPN. They started their own thing that helped them. And I think obviously the ACC was playing catch up on that front. So it really wasn't a matter when they started of quality. It was a matter of just getting started and getting that added revenue stream. So from that front, obviously a success. Now, on the actual programming front and on the actual quality of the broadcasts of the games, let's be honest. I mean, I think it's a challenge. And, we had Mark Packer on our show earlier this week. I think Mark does a really good job. I also think there is a reality to what ACC fan bases are compared to Big Ten and SEC fan bases. There was an article this summer about, how the ACC needs their own Paul Feinbaum. Well, that would also require you having wackadoo fan bases to have a Feinbaum to appeal to. And other than really Florida State, who has a wackadoo fan base big enough to
Clemson.
kind of feed?
I don't know if it's
Clemson.
big enough, but Clemson's got a wackadoo fan base. And I do
but
think
Clemson's
this.
won 2 titles in the last 6 years, Patrick.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
they're not
I know.
crazy over the edge, So I think that's where we differentiate in terms of the ACC. When I say we, I think that's where they differentiate. The Big Ten has the name Big Ten for a reason. Indiana's got 50,000 students. There's no one in the ACC that can compete with that. Never mind Ohio State and Penn State,
Right.
who claim 60 and 70,000 students. There's just not that huge of a fan base. Now you add in the SEC. The SEC is in states and in cities where they have no other pro sports. Okay. You look at the ACC, you got a bunch of schools in Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Boston. Those towns and cities don't care about college sports in the way that even an Ole Miss would or an Arkansas would. So the composition of the ACC is its biggest challenge and obstacle. There are too many private schools. There are too many schools in cities that don't prioritize college sports. So when you're building a network, who are you really appealing to? That's their biggest challenge. And I think that's where I look at it and go, you're never going to catch the Big Ten and the SEC on that front.
Well, I get what you're saying on the programming front of, creating a show like a Feinbaum or having a compelling studio show. I think you could tap into the Florida State situation if you go and do a studio show there or a road show there. You could tap into the Clemson passion. You could tap into the Tobacco Road stuff. You can do that. You're not going to get that, if you go to Dallas necessarily. You're not going to get that if you go maybe to a degree Syracuse, depending on if you go to a basketball game and it's the right opponent. So I hear loud and clear what you're saying there. From the game distribution standpoint, though, I think they're in a pretty good spot because now theoretically you could go from noon until midnight and program football and basketball now on the weekends. So from that standpoint, I think the ACC, though not ideal, at least from a live event standpoint, has something that they can capitalize on now.
Yeah, I think that has been a win, and start times too. Remember, in the lean years, if you will, the ACC wasn't getting primetime games. I mean, heck, they were burying Florida State, Miami on ACC Network Plus, and that should have been an annual primetime game. So I think that has helped, and I do think you're right. Now you can add some of these schools out west. Stanford and Cal, give me a break. You do have the ability to show games all day long. Yes, sure, that's a bonus. But I think one thing that bothers me with the ACC network is the quality of those games. They've skimped on the production of those games, and they really become produced by like the local AV club at your school. And there's a limited number of cameras. We had the famous octolateral game, which was decided in part because it was an ACC network game that they did not have a camera on the visiting sideline at all. So they didn't have the right angle to see that the guy's knee was down. Like, think about that. This is not like 1957. You know what I mean?
Do not defend him, Giglio. I was sitting in the end zone of that game, and I could see that guy's knee was down. I was in the student section, and I could see that guy's knee was down. And that block was in the back that they picked up the flag from. I don't hear this crap.
Right, because they only had one hard camera from the Duke side. And that, to me, I watch these games. I watch a little bit of State. I watch a little bit of Wake. And I'm sitting here going, boy, this looks like – I mean, they all mean well. Then I'm sure it's more money than I'm giving them credit for. But it's like, I don't know about you, Patrick. Sometimes I turn on the Fox game of the week, and I get it. ABC treats their game of the week different too. But that Fox game of the week blows me away every single time I watch it. I'm going, this is the majors, and you guys are riding the bus in the minors over here with what you're trying to do.
Well, regardless of how you slice it with ESPN, their focus is going to be on the SEC and SEC football because that's where they can make the most amount of, I mean, the pro stuff, NBA, NFL, yeah. But, I mean, as far as their collegiate production, when it comes to football, it's the SEC. That's where they're going to put all of their resources. That's where they're going to get the trucks to go, and you're gonna have the multiple angles and the various cameras. With the ACC, and I know a little bit about this because I've done some ACC Network Extra, you're using a lot of that same infrastructure, and it's you got 4K cameras. They're putting a 4K camera on my big ass, Giglio. Think about that for a minute, and so you've got that. So that's really good stuff for a non-linear game. But you're right. If it's a linear game in prime time on your network, ESPN should be willing to add some more cameras to that and more production beef to that. But they're not because they're going to put all of their money into the SEC football product. And then when it comes to basketball, they'll probably put a little more emphasis on certain ACC games.
I will give the CW credit. I think that game of the week, they try and have some extra production. I think they did a good job with that last year.
Yeah, that ain't your dad. That ain't Sailing with the Pilot.
Right.
The CW, even though it's a lot of the same kind of people. No, I think the CW thing's been really a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear all this stuff with streaming and all that, people overlook the CW, and I think they're tainted because they went with Live. But I mean, if you're a fan of just watching golf shots like I am, you might get a headache watching Live on certain days. But I mean, if you want to, you're going to see golf shots at least.
Yeah. And not just a tracer. Yeah.
Right.
Don't get me started on golf, sir. Don't get me started. Don't do that. We don't have enough time for all that now.
Joe Giglio from the OG podcast is joining us here on the Patrick Johnson Show. All right. Week 0 game, Florida State. Could be some quarterback issues. They got a lot of turnover in the skills set. Georgia Tech should be better. The game's going to be in Dublin. I think Debbie's remnants, subtropical, post-tropical Debbie could be influencing the weather. At least a couple days ago, it was looking like that's going to be the case. But that's kind of the game, the marquee game of the week. When you look at that, Giglio, what should the average fan, the consumer, be looking for? What should we be looking for as a tell out of that game?
Man, if that doesn't typify where the ACC is, man, we own week 0. Yes, we got Florida State and Georgia Tech and my boys Smooth taking on Nevada. So congratulations to the ACC for owning week 0. All jokes aside, I think Georgia Tech is in that Florida boat where their schedule this year is absolutely bonkers. Georgia Tech, under Brent Key at the end of the season, really rallied, and they were a good team down the stretch. They gave Georgia a fight. They gave everybody a fight. They beat Carolina. They won some other games. And anytime Georgia Tech's a double-digit dog, you should take them. Absolutely. But I have to believe that Florida State comes out in this game and in this season with a chip on their shoulder. They hate their conference. They hate the playoff committee. They hate the SEC. They hate everybody other than themselves. And they probably hate themselves at some point, right? There's some self-loathing there. So
Sure.
If you're in that position, and guess what? And you know this, P, from his time at Memphis, Mike Norvell's a really good coach. Okay. So I think you have a team that should be motivated. I think they will play that way this year. You have a really good coach. And yes, you mentioned DJ Uiagalelei. Last time we saw him, he was at Clemson. He struggled flat out. And I think he's in a better situation now because, in part, he's with a better offensive coach in Mike Norvell, okay, a game day coach. And Dabo's not out there scheming things up for him. You have better skill players around him. And I think that's where Clemson failed him. They didn't have a Sammy Watkins and Andre Ellington, Travis Etienne, whoever you want to name. He didn't have those players in the years that he started for them, okay? Their skill players really fell off. All apologies to Will Shipley, the Wolfblood. But the truth of the matter is he's going to have better talent around him and a better coach with him, and you're talking about a motivated team. I think you're going to see Florida State this year, maybe not breathe fire, but I think they will win the ACC. And I think they're going to try to prove a point on their way out because I really do believe this will be their last year in the league.
Joe, okay. Wait a minute. Joe Giglio, OG Podcast. What makes you believe that? Because the money would seem to be prohibitive in that situation. And I don't see the ACC relenting. The ACC has no motivation to relent.
I agree, but I think they're so hell-bent and they have whatever private equity lined up that they have lined up that I think they'll find a way to bite off their nose in spite of their face. It just seems like that's what they want to do.
Where will they go, though, Joe?
They might try to be independent. I don't know. I can't explain stupid to you, right? Like, I get that they're mad. I get being mad. I get that's their default mode. I get that. But sometimes when you're mad, you don't see clearly about what your best options are. So I think they have their private equity money lined up. I think they're ready to cash whatever that is in and be on their way.
What, Big 12?
Again, I don't know where they're going. I just know they don't want to be where they are.
I understand that. Big 10?
I don't think the Big 10 wants them, do you?
I think Notre Dame will go to the Big 10 before Florida State.
Possibly, but I think the Big 10 would be more of a make-sense destination for Florida State and Clemson than the SEC would, because it gives the Big 10 encroachment into SEC territory if you were to get Florida State and to get Clemson. And I don't think it's going to happen. I could see that that's the logic behind it if you decide to go that route. Otherwise,
you probably play an independent schedule too.
Well, otherwise, come play in the American. Let's have
There you
Florida
go.
State in the American. There you go. Let's add a member to the American. Joe Giglio. They need a basketball to even it out. Joe Giglio is with us here on the Patrick Johnson Show. I was going to ask you about NC State. Will the offense be as dynamic as we're led to believe it will be?
I think that's the big question, right? Like, will Dave Doran, former linebacker, former defensive coordinator, will he allow his teams to try to win in the 30s, right? And I think it's a big philosophical fork in the road for him. I don't think their defense is going to be terrible, but I also don't think it will be what it has been the last few years under Tony Gibson. They had an absolute eraser in Peyton Wilson. They don't have a one-for-one replacement of him. Right. And I think, there'll be some challenges for them this year, particularly in the two games where they need it. Tennessee, I'm thinking of specifically. Clemson, Patrick, still has one game a year where they basically stick up their middle finger at the ACC and remind them, we're still Clemson. That game last year was against Carolina at home. Well, I suspect this year it might be against NC State at home. And the year before it was against NC State at home. I just look at those two games and I go, well, how are you going to win these games? Are you really going to trade paint with Tennessee and beat them? Probably not. Can you go down to Clemson? Probably licking their wounds at that point after, I do not expect Clemson to be close against Georgia in the opener. So that should leave them in that kind of ornery, desperate mood. So it's kind of like, well, where do you go from there? And I on paper and in theory, they should be much better on offense. They have a lot more players at their disposal and options at their disposal. Really, last year, it was just Kevin Concepcion, and that was it. So now you've upgraded at running back. You've upgraded all the receiver spots. You've added Justin Joly at tight end, who I think could really have a big season. But again, it comes back to that philosophical fork in the road for Dave Doran, defensive coach, defensive-minded, conservative coach. 3 yards in a cloud of dust coach. Will you be willing to try to win football games in the 30s? And I don't have that answer. I won't know that answer until I see what he allows Robert and I to do with that offense.
All right, Joe, we got to stop here. Great to talk to you. We'll get you back soon because there's just so much to talk about. Much.
Check out. I know you have Mike Houston on all the time, but we had Mike Houston on the podcast this week, thanks to our friend Malcolm over there at ECU. He was great. He's in coach mode. I know that, but we got a couple of things out of him that I think ECU fans will really enjoy. And I expect to bounce back from ECU this year. So I enjoyed that. So check us out, please. Ovius and Giglio on the YouTubes and catch that interview with Mike Houston.
Cool. We'll do that. Hey, thank you a lot, Joe. Great to talk to you.
P-Man, anytime.
There he goes, Joe Giglio. Right now, here is Philip Pilkington with an update.
And now, the stunning conclusion of the show. It's the P-Man here on 94.3 The Game.
Great show today. I've had a lot of fun. It's been a good one. We'll have Pilkington hosting tomorrow. More on that in a minute. East Carolina weight loss. I continue to have people ask me about it. 60-plus pounds. Pilk, I got on the scales this morning, and again, I'll make no bones about it. I was misbehaving. And had according to the scales, put some numbers back. I didn't feel good. I thought I was starting to look fatter than I am today, the other day. And so I've gotten back and I've really rededicated myself to this. And I mean, it's like 10 pounds down in a week, 252-496-3610 is the number to call for East Carolina weight loss. No sugar, no gluten, no dairy, no oil, no soy. You might think that sounds terrible, but it's not. I feel great. It's the best I've felt in several weeks this week.
As long as there's no gluten in bourbon, then if there's gluten in bourbon, I'm out.
There's no gluten.
Okay, then I can do it.
Oh, you said long as there's no gluten in bourbon.
Yeah, because you said no gluten.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do no
Yeah,
bourbon.
well, you're young. You could still have some pops or some drinks. I on this you don't drink, but that's fine. That's fine. I mean, there's stuff you can drink because I know people who've lost with it, lost weight with it, and then there's certain things they do drink. Reminder that a week from Saturday, it's our first Pirate Game Day Countdown, returning for yet another year. It's presented by Anson Belt and Buckle. Pilk, myself, Joe Sampson, Stephen Igo. PJ Show will be at Tiebreakers Monday at 5 o'clock. Jim Zoki's set to be with us there. We'll confirm that with you. And that'll be followed by the premiere episode of Inside Pirate Athletics with Mike Houston from Tiebreakers, 6 o'clock here on 94.3 The Game. Steve Logan's show starts a week from today. And Rose Football to 102.7 FM. Washington Football on 94.3 The Game this season. They'll both have their season openers Friday. Pilk, tomorrow, who do you got?
We have Matt Taylor, Washington head football coach, and a little Joey football sighting.
There you go. All right. Have a good one tomorrow, Pilk. I'll catch everybody in the morning, or Pilk will. Somebody will on Talk of the Town. Pilk will be here for the PJ Show. Don't forget Tiebreakers Monday. I'll see you then. Thanks to Joe Giglio for being on with us today.